Hi, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to those of you who have faithfully been hanging in here with me. So, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to get to this application for recognition. I'm looking at my screen of exemption under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. It is Part 5, compensation and other financial arrangements. So, we're going to get to that but before we do that, please subscribe to my channel. I need you to subscribe because I cannot continue to do this if you don't subscribe. I need you to subscribe, please. There's so many of you that watch my video in the thousands, surprisingly. Yeah. But you don't click subscribe, and I need you to do that so that I can keep doing what I'm doing. I really want to get this information out there. But also, um, there's so many free items below. There's a checklist that will tell you everything you need to include in your package so that you will be approved as a 501c3 tax exempt organization. There are so many items that I have talked about in previous videos that you'll actually need to check so that it'll help you make things easier for you as you go through this application, because you don't want to have to stop and start the video. It'll just be easier to watch the video and then click the link below to get the form that I've talked about in the video, right? So please do that. Let's go ahead and get started with this part 5, compensation and other financial arrangements. Okay.
Okay, so here we are at pay.gov, and I've already logged in, and we are at application for recognition of exemption under Section 501c3, and it is Part 5, compensation and other financial arrangements. So I'm going to go ahead and get off the screen so that we can get to it. All right, so the very first question is of this Part 5 compensation and other financial arrangements. It is, do you or will you compensate officers, directors, or trustees? Or do or will you have highest compensated employees or highest compensated independent contractors? If no, continue to line 2. Typically, I know that in the beginning of the newness of a nonprofit, it's going to be very difficult to pay yourself, but ideally you do want to be able to pay yourself. You want to be able to compensate yourself, your treasurer, your secretary, the main 3 individuals that you have to have to on your board, because number one, you've got bills, right? You have bills, and you want to be able to fully immerse yourself into the activities of the nonprofit, helping it to succeed, helping it to grow, being able to help your program participants or whomever it may be. It could be sustainability with the earth, what have you. In this case, we're working with Pretty Paws Foundation, again, a made up foundation, but this is what we're doing. So you do want to be able to compensate yourself because you got bills. I know I have bills. So when you select yes, it drops down several other questions that you need to answer. See, if you say no, no drop down. But please, let's compensate yourself. So yes, we want to let the IRS know that we plan to do that. And so now they want to ask you some other questions. Next one, do or will the individuals that approve compensation arrangements follow a conflict of interest policy? Absolutely yes. In just a moment, we'll get into the conflict of interest policy and I will let you know exactly what that is. All right. Do or will you approve compensation arrangements in advance of paying compensation? Yes. That's kind of, yeah, for sure. Do or will you document in writing the date and terms of approved compensation arrangements? Yes, this is pretty much what a typical for-profit would do. So you definitely want to do that. Do or will you record in writing the decision made by each individual who decided or voted on compensation arrangements. Yes, that would be called meeting minutes. We'll get into that. Do or will you approve compensation arrangements based on information about compensation paid by similarly situated taxable or tax exempt organizations for similar services? Current compensation surveys compiled by independent firms or actual written offers from similarly situated organizations? Yes. You know why? Because how do you know how much to pay yourself if you don't do research? If you don't conduct research to determine what another nonprofit that's similar to yours is paying their, executive director or treasurer or secretary, or looking at any surveys or what have you. Just you have to conduct research to determine that. So definitely, yes. Do or will you record in writing both the information on which you rely to base your decision and its source? Yes, you need that as a point of reference for yourself, if for nothing else. Do or will you have any other practices you use to set reasonable compensation? Well, they mean there any other practice other than what they've mentioned in that conflict of interest policy. It's okay to say no there because all of this covered everything. So before I get to number two, let's go back up to where it mentioned the conflict of interest policy. Do or will the individuals that approve compensation arrangements follow a conflict of interest policy? Now, the first thing you want to always do when you pull up this form, I did not do it, so please look over me this time. But right here at the very beginning, see instructions for more information right there. So you just want to put your mouse there, right click on it, go ahead and open link in new tab, because if you click directly on it, of course, it's going to just open up in this tab. You don't want to do that. So notice here we're at part 5. When you click on the instructions from this section, it takes you straight there, part 5. See, compensation and other financial arrangements. All right. So what we want to do is kind of look here, and as you know, these instructions tell you exactly how to um, complete each section. See, compensation, check yes if you do or you will compensate your officers. So it goes on, but what we're going to do is go look for conflict of interest. So here we are, conflict of interest. But remember, if you have any questions about any parts um, of the instructions or the questions, be sure to read everything. All right. I'm not going to do that now because you guys know I've already read it. Because you do want to read this. You want to know what reasonable compensation is. You want to know what they mean by similarly situated. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, but there is reasonable compensation when it comes to nonprofits. So read that, please. But here we are interested in conflict of interest policy. So, what it says, conflict of interest policy is included as Appendix A. Awesome. They actually have included what should the conflict of interest should look like, how it should read. It's in their Appendix A. We're going to find that in a moment. This sample conflict of interest policy doesn't prescribe any specific requirements. Therefore, organizations should use a conflict of interest policy that best fits their organizations. Okay. I can tell you, you want to use exactly the sample that the IRS gives you. We're going to get that to that appendix in just a moment, but I will tell you this is probably one of the plagiarism is never a thing, right? Never. However, this is one of the few times you are allowed to actually copy what it says word for word, because when you submit this form, the IRS is going to be looking for it word for word. Now, they're okay, as they said, if you want to add to it, whatever best fits your organization, certainly add to it. But I will tell you word for word. All right. And it goes on here, it tells you And we're going to get into this more also. And this will actually be in a different video because this is involving meeting minutes. I think I may have touched on it in another video. I can't recall. Sorry. But adoption of a conflict of interest policy isn't required to obtain tax exempt status. It is not required. This is what their form is telling you. However, by adopting the sample policy, that's the one that's in Appendix A, or a similar policy, you will be choosing to put in place procedures that will help your officers, directors, and trustees recognize situations that could present potential or actual conflicts of interest so that you can take steps to reduce the risk that those in positions of authority over you may receive as an inappropriate benefit. So, it goes on to tell you the sample conflict of interest policy in Appendix A. It tells you what it includes, but it also mentions if you're a hospital, you're starting a nonprofit as a hospital, it tells you that you need to insert certain information. All right, so let's go ahead and look at that. And again, I will tell you, let me just refer back to this. Definitely, you want to adopt your conflict of interest policies because they're telling you that, again, adopting the sample policy, you'll be choosing to put in place procedures that will help your officers, directors, and trustees. And they have to read this conflict of interest policy. How is it going to help the officers? Again, to start yourself as an executive director or what have you, treasurer and secretary, how it's going to help them if they don't read it. So to tell the IRS that, yeah, we adopted a conflict of interest policy, and I'm telling you that each one of the board actually fully understands that policy. We've read it. Well, you have to have a meeting and you have to record the meeting, right? Via minutes. So, yeah. So let me show you something here. You see when I open up the instructions right here, there is this, which is the thumbnails. What they're talking about is each one of these right now. We are on page 10, but we're going to find Appendix A. This next one, you could, of course, scroll down and find it. It's a long document, but you can do that. But if you click here, see, then it just kind of gives you a table of content, excuse me. Right here it says Appendix A, Sample Conflict of Interest Policy. That's what we want. See, index. So we're just going to click on that. Look at there. IRS is so good. They take you straight there. Appendix A, Sample Conflict of Interest Policy. No guessing, right? So I will not read all of this. You will need to read every single word, you and your board. But you, of course, have to copy this into a Word doc, Google Doc, whatever, because you can't just copy this. I mean, print that out and send it to them. But it says here this simple conflict of interest policy is intended to provide an example of a conflict of interest policy for organizations. The sample conflict of interest policy does not prescribe any specific requirements. Therefore, organizations should use a conflict of interest policy that best fits their organization. And that kind of goes back to what they were saying as I read earlier. If you want to add something to this, then definitely do that. But I will tell you, you need to put, I would. Okay, you can do what, but I would. This is their sample. You want to use this sample word for word, and then you want to add to this if you should want to. Maybe add different articles or what have you. So, see here, Article 1, purpose is telling you the purpose of a conflict of interest policy is to protect this tax-exempt organization's interest when it is contemplating entering into a transaction or arrangement that might benefit the private interest of an officer or director of the organization. All right, so what that means, I'm going to give you an example. So, say Beatrice Adams. Okay, this is Pretty Paws Foundation. This is the made up nonprofit that I'm working with, right? To show you all these examples and how to get through this form. So Beatrice, I'm on the board. I am the, I don't know, executive director. Why not? So I actually own a pet grooming service. How cool is that, right? I'm on the board of a nonprofit who that's what they do. The mission is to, well, let me just look at that mission again. All right. So the mission of Pretty Paws Foundation Inc. is to subsidize grooming and veterinary costs for inner city pet owners with limited income, while educating the owner on proper animal care and nutrition to avert disease and sickness. So, goal, subsidize grooming and veterinary costs. So, our nonprofit is going to help pay for those services that pet owners who cannot necessarily afford. Underserved, they're an underserved community. They live in the inner city. They can't, they're on a limited income. They can't actually take all of their money to pay for these services, but they love their pets and they want them to be serviced, right? So I, Beatrice, who is the executive director of Pretty Paws Foundation, actually owns a grooming service. So I'm like, hey, why not? I own a grooming services. You need to pay somebody to groom the pets for these, our demographic. Why not me? Why not my service? Well, in that situation, Beatrice, I have a conflict of interest because I have a personal financial interest, you know, because it's my company. Pretty Paws Foundation would be paying my service, my company to groom these pets. So you can see that's a really huge conflict because I also have the power to make decisions on as my role on the board. Like I'm executive director, I'm on the board. So when it comes to how much will Pretty Paws Foundation pay Beatrice's pet grooming service, I can influence that decision. I can say you're going to pay me more than what, you necessarily need to. Or, Pretty Paws Foundation as a nonprofit may not want to pay the entire amount. Say it's $30 to clip nails for the pet. The Pretty Paws Foundation as a nonprofit may say, "Hey, we would only want to pay you half of that. I know you charge $30, Beatrice, but we want to pay you $15." And Beatrice says, "No, I need you to pay my service $30 as what everyone else pays." That's just wrong. Like you see how that's a huge conflict of interest because I have that decision making ability. As a role, I can sway other members to um, go with me on what I think I need or should have. So yeah, let's avoid all of that, right? So what you want to do is you really just want to go down here and just copy. I'm gonna tell you why you're gonna have to make a lot of revisions, but well, not a lot, but there will be some things you will have to take out. So I think that's the end. So let's just, you see, all I did was, the deal. I just held down my left, um, the mouse, the left clicky, whatever it's called, and I just scroll down. It's all highlighted. Now I'm going to right click and on the mouse, and I'm going to click copy. All right. So we're going to get right over here and I will then copy that over into a Word document. I know there are lots of you who know how to do this, but I want to also take care of the ones who may not have all of that technical skill that they may need to get this done. So just bear with me while I show copy, paste, and all of that stuff. So hold on just a moment. Let me grab that Word document and we're going to copy that into the Word document and go from there. All right, so here I am on my Microsoft Word document screen. You can use Google Docs, excuse me, if you like. That's free. Microsoft Word does require, a monthly fee. If you don't want to buy the software package altogether, you can do Microsoft Office 365. It's like 10.95 or something like that per month, so it's very affordable. They don't sponsor me, it's just what I have used. Probably I've used Microsoft Office products since they came into existence, since I was, anyway, we won't go with my age there, but we're just gonna go ahead and right here and click paste. All right, so we're gonna click, well, it didn't do it, so let's do this. Paste. There we go. So what I did, I clicked that, but it didn't do it, didn't paste it. So what I did was I just hit the right click on my mouse and then I clicked paste. And then it brought it all here. But as you can see, that looks nothing like what we just copied. So you want to always keep your instructions up because you want to make sure you're getting this in the right place. Basically, you're going to go here and you're just going to um, fix it basically. So I happen to know that Article 1, that's there, and it's going to talk about purpose, that's there. And then I'm just going in here. See, here's Article 2. We're going to do that. And that's saying definitions. Now you don't have to do it like that. You can leave that all right there if you want, but I just kind of make it stand out. Not necessary. And then you're going to do this, so on and so forth. So basically, you're going to go here. All I did was I left click on my mouse, drug it down. That's the magic key, right? Then I left clicked it again to lock it in. Because if you don't, you can't, it's not going to do anything. So I've already locked it in. And then what I'm going to do is I want to center it. All right. So right here, it just says center, or you can go right there. That's center also. So we're just going to click center. There it is. And I always like to bold, not necessary, not necessary. It's just, I like to do it. I like to make my font a little bigger than what it was, which was 11, because I know I, need help reading, seeing this stuff, my contacts and glasses. So I want to make it easy for the IRS. And then here, again, I just click my left, the mouse, my left click. I literally do not know what it means, what that what that term is for the left click on the mouse. So if there's a specific term, please leave a comment below and tell me what it is. But I left click, I just kind of drag down. Now you could go ahead and drag all down, you know. I'm just going to show you a little bit though. So I'm going to do that, lock it in. And then when I say lock it in, I just click that left click again. I'm going to change that font. You can leave that Aptos. I usually use Times New Roman on everything, but for the purposes of this video, let's just leave it. Doesn't matter. It's not a requirement. So let's make that 12. And see, that's bigger than that. Makes it easier for the IRS. And then you just want to keep going down. You want to just keep doing the same thing. Make that font 14. We're going to center it. Go right there and center. And then here, this is number 1, interested person. Right. And then again, look at the instructions because you'll be able to tell um, the sections, how they should be. Let's just put a period there. You can do whatever you want. But I would make that bold so it stands out. Again, you guys who already know all this stuff, so sorry. I just want to make sure that everyone understands how to navigate Word just a little, okay? So I want to show you something here. I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to, oops, well, it's fine that it stays there. Let me fix that. See, that's the undo. I just want to fix that. So right here, it's talking about hospital. If you are a hospital, it's telling you, or you're starting a nonprofit, that will be a hospital. Then it's telling you for hospitals that complete Section C, because they're Schedule C, because as a hospital, you will have to complete certain schedules. It says if a person is an interested person with respect to any entity in the healthcare system of which the organization is a part, he or she is an interested person with respect to all entities in the healthcare system. Now, what they're saying is hospitals insert, right? So you would insert, you wouldn't, this is what you would do. Okay. Most my clients have not started hospitals. They're just not doing that. But if you were to do that, all right, you would want to insert this language here. And so you would take that out. The IRS doesn't need to know that. Now, what it's doing is giving more information as far as the hospital is concerned. Okay, so that's basically, I think you get that part. All right. And oop, this I'm not going to show you how to use Word. I'm just not going to do that, but just kind of showing you how you would do this. You can kind of see me moving around. I would probably just bring that up there because it's um, just to insert it there. It doesn't have to have its own paragraph. And then again, you're just going to go down. You're just going to keep doing the same thing. Bold that here so it stands out. And then just keep going and looking. Remember, go back to your instructions because you'll see the layout. Let's see if I can get there without switching out. There we go. So see, you'll see the layout of how everything should be. Article 1, purpose. Remember, that's pretty much how I did it right there. I just separated that and then let that ride there. Then Article 2 goes into definitions. All right. And it's talking about interested person here, telling you what it means by an interested person. All right. Any director, principal officer, or member of a committee with governing board delegated powers who has a direct or indirect financial interest. So that is an interested person. They're giving you the definition. I mean, that's what Article 2 is, definitions. Now, this is where I inserted the hospital stuff. See, this is where it says hospital insert, and then it's telling you what to insert. Oops, sorry. So that's what you would do. That's where I got that from. And again, so have your instructions up when you copy and paste the conflict of interest policy. I wish it copy and pasted more neatly than that. Maybe it will in Google Docs. I have not used Google Docs, but maybe it will. I kind of doubt it, but maybe. But if not, have this up so that you can, you know, separate the categories the way you should. And there's a definition for financial interest. I just kind of gave you an example of that, right? It also tells you the procedures you need to follow. If there is a conflict of interest policy, that's why this is so important and you have to adopt this, right? So, you have a duty to disclose. So Beatrice would have to say, I need to call a meeting because I have to disclose that I own a pet grooming service and I've put my bid in to service the pets for the organization that I'm an executive director with. So I have to disclose that. Then it tells you the procedures. Then determining whether a conflict of interest exists. In the meeting, that's what you'll be doing, determining if there's a conflict of interest. Does it really exist? In this case, it really does. Then it says procedures for addressing the conflict of interest. It tells you exactly what to do. That's why this is a very, very important document that word for word, you need to copy this. If you feel better because when you go to school, college, or whatever, they're telling you you should not plagiarize. I'm telling you in this instance, it's okay. I'm not telling you to do anything illegal. I'm just telling you that the IRS requires it. But what you would want to do to just make things okay, and then if you want to, again, that's up to you. Um, just copy that, and at the end of your conflict of interest policy, type source, and then just copy this underneath. So that way your board can see where you got the information from, again, where the information came from. You'll feel better. I'm not plagiarizing because I actually noted this information on the conflict of interest policy. I'm showing you where I got the information. I'm showing the IRS. IRS already knows you copy this because they know what their wording is. But if you just want to make yourself feel better, I get it. That's a huge thing. So just put source, copy that, that address bar right there, and then paste it underneath source and that at the end of the document, and all is well. You will not have plagiarized then. You will have actually cited the source. Then it tells you violations of the conflict of interest policy, tells you all of that. And again, read all of this. Okay. Records of proceedings telling you that that's about meeting minutes. You see the minutes of the governing board and all committees will with board delegated powers shall contain. It's telling you what should be in the meeting minutes. Because again, remember I told you you're going to adopt these the conflict of interest policy. Telling you exactly what to do. And the IRS tells you exactly. They're no joke. They took the time to lay all this stuff in the instructions. So don't be afraid of the instructions. I know it's massive, but you will not need to read 40 pages because um, some of those pages talk about schedules. You will have to look at one of those, but not all schedules will apply to your organization. So, but yeah, read. Don't be afraid of this. So I see it signed me out because I was goofing off showing you that other stuff. So let me get logged back in and we'll continue. So we are at part 5. So we went ahead, we did answer number 1. We answered all of this. Now number 2, have you adopted a conflict of interest policy? Remember I talked about that in the instructions. And is that policy consistent with the sample conflict of interest policy in Appendix A to the instructions? See that? That's why I say it's okay to copy it word for word because they say, have you adopted a conflict of interest policy consistent with the sample conflict of interest policy in Appendix A? That would be yes. Now, remember, talk to you about the hospital. It had information in there about the hospital. If you are a hospital, answer yes. If your conflict of interest policy includes provisions consistent with the additional healthcare related provisions in the sample document. If no, describe the procedures you will follow to ensure that persons who have a conflict of interest will not have influence over setting their own compensation or regarding business deals with themselves. So, hospital, read that very carefully. But in this case, we're not a hospital. We are Pretty Paws Foundation. It's a grooming. Well, we help the people who can't afford to pay for grooming services. So we're going to stop right here because I know I don't want this video to go longer because there are other questions that we need to answer and I need to get through. So we're going to stop right here and